All right, Ambush, and today we are joined by a Canadian, a singer, a songwriter, and he's not just that, he is a father, a husband, a friend, and he has been a traveling performer for a long time, and he is coming up upon a release of a new album. His latest album in quite a while, I believe. If you count 2020, he released a little bit of a holiday album, but besides that, we're taking it back to 2015, so probably a little bit of quite a bit to dive into with our guest here today. The upcoming album, it is called Botanicals. Our guest is JP Hoe. How's it going today, JP?
It's going great. I'm having a beautiful day here in Winnipeg, Canada. We finally hit our spring, and everybody's feeling, 10 times better than they were about a week ago. So we're in a good place.
Gotta love the prairies, right? Oh, it's June. Yeah, the snow finally almost gone. Let's go.
Right. This has been I don't have any reference to anybody else because we live in a bubble here, but it was a hard winter and a harder spring, and so the gratitude that everyone's feeling right now, it's intense. So we're ready to let this summer get going.
Hey, the grass is starting to grow, the flowers are starting to bloom, and everybody is ready for some sunshine to get out into some crowds and otherwise, I'm sure, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'll be great to start to play on a more frequent basis instead of, once every 5 months.
Whenever the door opens, get my foot inside of it. Let's go.
Exactly.
Fantastic. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, we're here to talk about this upcoming album, Botanicals, my friend. So of course, I want to know, when exactly does this album begin to take shape for you? Because like I mentioned, your last true album about 2015, a Christmas album in 2020. So
yeah,
when does Botanicals begin to grow?
Yeah, Botanicals started to grow probably back in 2019. And in 2018, I made a record with 4 other sort of well-known singer-songwriters from Winnipeg. And we were hoping that we would spend sort of the next 2 years promoting that record and touring that record. And once the record came out, 2 of the artists were no longer, I guess, allowed to pursue our project, and so that kind of just threw the timeline of getting music out there into a tailspin, and so I had to regroup myself and started to write the songs in 2019, and then pandemic hit, and it was a mixture of, I couldn't quite plan ahead for the future during that time. Like, there was, here in Winnipeg, we had plenty of lockdowns, and my wife, her job was to make a therapy drug for COVID, to try and help create one. And so when you're the artist, out of the 2 people in the relationship, you become the de facto and the default stay-at-home person and homeschool teacher, and it really just kind of, it messes with your brain. But those moments when the kids would go back to school and go back to daycare for at least a month, it would be about trying to songwrite and try and, be my own therapist and get out what I was observing and what was eating at me. And finally last September, we got to a place here in Winnipeg where it sort of felt pretty safe to send the kids out. And that's when I finally got to start tracking, and by Christmas time we had everything mixed, and now we're just waiting for supply chains to make the vinyl, and then September we get to release the whole thing, and it's been a long time coming, but I'm very, very proud and excited about this.
Hey, a long time coming, a lot of work that goes into it, and I kind of laugh there just because normally when you talk to an independent musician, it's, we only have 5 days to get into the studio. we have to record all of our songs inside of this time. And like for you, it's like, no, I just need to send my kids to daycare, man.
Honestly, I did not, coming into being a musician, you do not think about being a parent. You do not think about having to balance like normal life with this sort of extraordinary life. And yeah, it was great. Once they left, I made sure like I sort of I went throughout the pandemic, tried to acquire all the equipment that I wanted so that I could be tracking and I could be engineering and bring all the musicians that I wanted to my studio and and track and do the pacing the way that I wanted to. And I didn't feel that there was no gun, there was no clock ticking. It was just make the record you want to make. And it was a relatively new experience compared to like the two records before that, in that we were in the middle of a pandemic, and so who knew what was to come? And it took any pressure off of trying to make a record that could do this or could open this. And it reminded me of making my very first record and saying, "Oh, I just want to make these songs because they please me. They make me happy." There was 35 to pick from, and we picked 11 or 12 that just made me happy. And it was like an art project. And I don't know if musicians get to have that feeling as often as they should, because everybody's trying to figure out how to stay afloat. And this one, I thought, F it. Let's just make something. Let's make a piece of art, and whatever happens, happens. And it's a really freeing experience.
Hey, I love to hear that. And of course, you mentioned there as you sort of were the engineer and the producer behind all of these tracks as well there.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember in 2000 and maybe 7 or 8 when I heard Sufjan Stevens like Come and Feel the Illinois, and I was looking at like the credits, and so much was him. And I thought, oh, that's a goal. That is top of my professional bucket list. Spend the next decade watching and observing and figuring out what the best do and how they do it, and then give yourself a shot. And so I wanted to have something to put on a mantle, a personal mantle. I wanted to show my kids, if you work hard and you pay attention, you can make something that you're proud of, And I got to write all the orchestration charts for the string players and play most of the instruments on the record. And I don't know if I would do it again like this, but the pandemic, if there was a silver lining for me, it was that there were times where we weren't allowed to have anybody over. And so you were just forced to do it. And it turned out to be like a really wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a lot harder to do when you're out touring Europe and otherwise, right?
Yeah. Touring, there's time for nothing except hopefully like one good cup of coffee.
A lot of bad coffee along the way, though.
Got a lot of gas station coffee just to make it.
You can always tell the difference between good coffee, and I was like, does it taste good with just sugar, or do I have to like load this thing with creamer?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to do.
Hey, got it done. And of course, came out with some incredible tracks. And our first taste of the album came out here May 26th, just recently, as of the recording of the album here, with Out of the Darkness. So of course, take us a little bit behind what this track means to you, and what was the decision behind making it the lead song?
So this is one of the songs that I wrote during the pandemic, and it came in that first year of the pandemic when the level of uncertainty I don't think we had ever felt, whether it was like individually or collectively. And I remember just sort of watching the news and scrolling through, and people were dying, and it seemed terrifying to not have any sort of grasp on how do you deal with this. And at the same time, that was the first time my kids were, locked out of school and daycare. And I just, daydreamed away and thought, okay, what if it gets me? What if it gets me? What's the legacy that I'm going to leave them? And then it just made me think about sort of how we're running this thing as a whole. Is it important to be loved by the people that know you? Is it important to be famous? Is it important to be admired for your skills? Like, what is it that makes life important? And so I think I hope I came to the right conclusion, which is it's important to live a life so that people in general miss you, and that you want to try and live that life, that you've done enough good and you've put enough good out there that, I think I remember a quote saying, live your life so that even the undertaker is sad when you die. And I just wanted to I wanted to make a song as a roadmap, if you will, like for my kids. And I chose to put this one out as the first single, not because it has really any sort of commercial viability, but I thought because it's been a while since I put out a record, expectations are not high. Expectations are at the lowest they could be. So let's start with one that I think is beautiful, one that sort of creeps in, and one that just sort of, it's a gentle knock on the door saying, okay, JP's about to put out a new record, and this is the direction that it's going. And I think that it captures the sentiment overall of the record.
Very well said. I must agree for sure. And I like the name of the song too, just because like, we're coming out of this period that we've all experienced through the last 2 years. Like nobody was not affected by it. And
No.
also just this period of you coming sort of back to music as well. It sort of has like multiple meanings to it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and I'm hoping that it's, it's totally relatable to whatever world you're in. Everybody, especially during this pandemic, everybody kind of probably lost touch with a lot of people in their lives, and through no fault of their own, through, just the experience. But everyone has to sort of find a way to like stand up again. And if this nudges anybody, then that's great. Or if at least people feel that it's relatable, that they're not the only ones who have felt like garbage, and see that maybe this is the acme of life, and we've gotten to this point, and then pandemic hits. Now you have to choose. Okay, that's how I lived the front half of my life. How do I want to choose to live the back half of my life? And I think it's kind of neat that the pandemic has made us have to think about bigger picture things and think about life as a whole. We were like, everyone had to confront it over the last couple of years. And I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. I think it put a lot of things in perspective for people, because like you can go like 2 years without seeing your family, and for a lot of people they were doing that, and like not putting it in, but like as soon as you're told that you can't, suddenly it became a like, what do you mean I can't go see grandma? What?
Right.
Like, but I had this option the entire time, and like now that it's been taken away from me, I want that back.
I want Nana,
Right?
Absolutely. If it would be shocking if this did not change people for the better. But I guess time will tell.
People have a funny way of going about things. We'll see how they take it.
Agreed.
Fantastic. And of course, one thing that anyone who follows you on social media may have seen is you've sort of hinted towards there may be some music video aspects of things, some visuals coming our way as well. So, what could you potentially tell us about that?
Oh, sure. So, I mean, right now the plan is to release 3 singles before the album. And so this is the first one, and we're just editing away a video that I think I think captures what was going on in my head, and it's really like a love letter to the two people that you know kept me breathing for all intents and purposes. Because I know that over the pandemic, my mental health took numerous hits, and my the two little kids that at the time felt like a struggle to keep their spirits up and to remember that I'm a person as well and not lose yourself. But they, the love that sort of they reciprocated with me is for sure what allowed me to get through it. And so the first video it's a performance video, and then we try to blend in a bunch of sort of home video clips from specifically the last 2 years and all the hours that we spent together. And once again, like, I don't know if it's my age or just this pandemic, but I think about legacy more than I ever thought about legacy. And I think, okay, it'd be really neat if we do this first video, which is about identifying what's important in life, and then match it with a video with these two little people that for me were the things that kept me going. And then our next 2 singles, we're going to make a couple live performance videos, live to tape videos that mimic some of the great videos that came out in like the 60s that were sort of, there wasn't a lot of like pomp and circumstance, but it was, this is a band, and this is a band that are playing their instruments. And, that's the world that I resonate in. I love real musicians who play their instruments. And so we're going to try and do a little tongue in cheek and a little nod to the videos that like the Beatles put out or the Stones put out back in the 60s, where it's 3 cameras on a soundstage. And yeah, and so those will come out in the summertime, and Out of the Darkness should come out in the next week or so. And then the record comes out in September.
Hey, fantastic. All right. So sounds like you've got some things planned, like the train is rolling here.
It feels good to have the train rolling. And I know that this year, because it was really hard to imagine in the middle of winter what touring would look like in 2022, the nice thing is the timing of the record coming out in the fall means we can start to plan for like a late 2022 or all of 2023. And so this is just a year about reconnecting with people, putting it out there and just saying, hey, I'm coming back in, have a listen, and hopefully you like it. And then we'll see you as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. For sure. And of course, if people want to join along for this ride, what's the best way to follow along?
I like the gram probably more than anything else, which doesn't really say much, because I never know what is absolutely interesting going on in my day-to-day life. But Instagram /JP Hoe, or Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. And people would like me to get onto TikTok, and that's a TBD. That's a TBD situation. I'm not sure if I'm clever enough for that, but we'll see.
With time will tell, right?
Yeah, time will tell. But go and stream Out of the Darkness if you can, and feel free to have a listen to anything older than that. And yeah, hopefully you'll like the new record.
As the guests absolutely should. I'll throw some links in the description to today's show to make it nice and easy for you to go ahead and do so. And I know, of course, some of the fans, some of the listeners, maybe like those who I said follow you on social media. Maybe you've seen that you coaching some little league hockey in your spare time, and obviously that's the thing that they're really here for. Do you have any tips or tricks for these coaches, for these little league coaches?
Oh boy. Right now I'm in coaching Little League baseball or U11 baseball. I think the key is at this age, the number one question is if they're having fun, good. If they're getting all the kids, you want the kids to have as many touches as possible. Otherwise, you lose them. And that's about it. Don't be afraid to make them run laps.
Solid advice. Thank you so much. I'm sure people were taking down notes the whole time. Fun, very important.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh my goodness. I appreciate you joining me here, JP. I have one last question for you here.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So of course, we've talked about the process of crafting and creating this album. And what I would like to know now is through exactly that process, how has it helped you to grow, or what has it taught you about yourself?
It has taught me to be more sure about my own decisions, and that it's okay if others don't like it. It really just takes the onus off of trying to get approval from other people, and that's not important. It's, as an artist, when you start this thing out, you're doing it because you have something to say and you want to say it the way you want to say it. And then through time, it gets a little bit convoluted, and you're trying to find a way to have a career arc. You still want it to go in the right direction. And so it's very easy to compromise on the initial ideas that you had. And so making this record allowed me to sort of just get in touch with those feelings again of, hey, you know what you want to do. There's a million different ways you can go, but go the way you want to go. You're the one who's running this show. And as long as you like it, then you don't have any regrets and you don't feel bad about it after. If you work with a producer and the producer says, I think we should do this, and you say, oh, I think we should do this, but you side with the producer because it's the producer, and then ultimately you hate it for the rest of your life, what purpose does that serve? And so if you have the means to do it yourself, I highly encourage it. And so that's what I take away, is sort of remembering I know what I'm supposed to be doing here. I've been doing this long enough that I have an education and it's ingrained in me. And I hope other people can follow that same path.
Absolutely. Hey, that's a wonderful lesson. I thank you for sharing it with us, and I hope people can follow it as well. And I hope that people can also follow that link to that new single, Out of the Darkness, which I am so thankful that you took the time to join us here today to discuss.
Thank you very much for having me, and I hope we'll chat again soon.